And we are back here with our final match of the evening. It is a very snowy, cold morning from what I can see over in Canada over there, and a very bright and probably cold as well evening in Korea. We wouldn't know though, there's no windows in Cure's room. We have a TvP on our hands. It is Cure versus Trigger.
Here we go. We're having the Zerg players take a break here. We've had a Zerg in every matchup so far, but now we're diving into this TvP, and here we go. Spawning in the top right-hand corner of Hecate, we have Cure for Team Liquid.
And we're here in the bottom left-hand corner of Hecate. We have Red Zerg player from Canada representing Basilisk. It's Trigger.
Beautiful. And if
now
you
we
are
have a real matchup on our hands.
And if you're in the chats, place your bets because predictions are open. Place your bets for the next couple of minutes. You can, of course, get your gamba on for who you think will take this series. As a reminder, it is a best of 3, not a best of 5. So a bit of a shorter series here, and quite a series we have before us.
Indeed, we do. We have up ahead of us, of course, Cure, the other ace of Team Liquid. Definitely outshadowed quite a bit here in this current season of WTL by Clem, and obviously well-deserved by Clem as well, but still a very scary Terran player in his own right. And meanwhile, we have Trigger, who is somebody who I think we can really kind of track the progress of ever since he joined Basilisk Gaming. You can see with every season of WTL, with every season of ESL Masters, he is getting better and better.
Yeah, Trigger, he has been improving so much over the past couple of years of play, and I mean, we've even seen him pop off in PvT. I'm of the opinion that Trigger's best matchup is PvT as well. He has some of the best out there. But in saying so...
I think you're onto something, yeah.
In saying so, though, Cure also has amazing PvT in his own right, or TvP in his own right. And up until recently, there was a big argument to be made that Cure had the best Terran versus Protoss in the world.
Yeah. And Clem came in.
Yeah, it's true. I do think that Clem did strip it away from him just because of the sheer amount of practice that Clem had against Max Packs in the ESL Open Cups. But regardless, like Clem and Cure, like they're both terrifying against Protoss.
They absolutely are. So this is absolutely going to be a treat for us. One of the best PvT players in the world versus one of the best TvP players in the world.
Here we go, as we have our opener of choice. Now, this is very stylistic from Trigger. It's something that we have noticed as we've been casting a lot of Trigger's PvTs recently. That is that he's not quite fond of Stargate openers. It's not really his jam. He whips it out every now and then, but if he can get away with it, he's much more comfortable with something like a Twilight Council instead.
Yeah. Which we always appreciate, or at least I do.
You're like, oh, it's not Phoenix Colossus? Oh, let's go.
Oh. He's actually microing his units? Oh! Or rather, he's actually making units you need to micro?
Oh my god.
Dude.
You're an animal, Pop. You're an animal. Asher, is that you? Am I suddenly casting with Asher now? Oh my god. The bias. But yeah, I mean, as you're saying, Blinkstalkers are a lot more dynamic, and there's a lot more you can do with them as well, depending on how many gateways you commit to as well.
Yeah, absolutely. They are a lot more dynamic, and I mean, we've always said that Blink is probably the most versatile opening you can get in a PvT. It's very useful for defense, and if you do get a robo facility like Trigger is doing right now, you can sneak out a Warp Prism, you can sneak out an Observer, and try your luck being a little bit aggressive as well. Gateway Protoss, or Swarm Toss, rather, is a style that is tricky to pull off, but if you are able to master it, then it does shut down a lot of styles of Terran.
Oh yeah. Recently, Australia's actually been really fond of Swarm Toss, and I think Classic as well. We have seen quite a bit of his PvT, so we'll see if Trigger does embrace that. For now, it's going to be an economic opener. It's only 2 gateways. It's going to be a 2-gate Blink into a 3rd Nexus, but the 3rd base is going to be delayed here by these Hellions. At the same time, Trigger does have the wherewithal to actually rotate over with his Stalkers. There's a mine drop making its way into the main base. We'll see if Trigger can respond in time, because that's a lot of mines.
This is a committed drop coming out from Cure. Doesn't quite have the armory for that, what's it called? Hiddenness?
Uh-huh.
But that's still a lot of mines that he's sending out.
There we go, and 2 of them are going to be shot down. At the same time, Hellions did get 2 workers on the right-hand side, so 4 in total. Widowmine's coming back in towards the natural, though.
And Trigger does catch wind of this, thankfully. Not too late. Oh, and he does even have detection here with the Observer.
Yeah, he has detection, and he shuts down the medevac. That was a nice pickoff. Bearing in mind, as you mentioned, this was committed to throw down and to whip out 4 Widow Mines. You ideally wanted a little bit more damage. 5 probes is okay, but again, I don't think that was quite worth losing the medevac itself.
Yeah, it absolutely is not, just from a math perspective. Which is why we see Cure being a bit more aggressive with his Raven. The wall is not a wall, and these 2 Ravens do dip in. 2 Hellions is enough to start 2-shotting these workers, and they're lining up!
Oh, they're lining up, and so much damage is being done. The Stalker's racing back home here, but by the time they do get here, 8 probes have already gone down. These Hellions have more than made up for that mine drop.
Without a doubt. That was Cure making millions out of lemons. He's not even making lemonade. He is just making bank. That was... Part of me almost wants to say that might have been intentional, or at the very least, Cure was intentionally keeping those 2 Hellions alive because of that mine drop being shut down. Usually when a mine drop gets shut down, that emboldens a Protoss player to try to go for a counterattack, like we saw from Trigger. And once that happened, Cure just completely cleaned house with 2 Hellions and a Raven.
Yeah, Trigger's overconfidence was taken advantage of, and just a really nice move out of Cure, just being aware that the natural base would be exposed in such a manner, and now suddenly Cure, he has an economic lead. He's pushing out with his bio army. Stim is going to finish up in a couple of seconds. Once it does, we can actually fight and go toe-to-toe with the Stalkers. We have a single Colossus in production. It should finish in time for the push, but we'll see if Cure can get within range of the Nexus, because again, there's 2 tanks with his army. That's a lot of firepower. That's a lot of DPS available here for the Terran.
Without a doubt. Sim is about to finish up in just 1 second. It has finished up. No medevacs to really sustain this army just yet, but here we go. They're picking up reinforcements. They are about to go across the map. There's a decent number of Marauders with this army of Cure as well. So despite the fact that Trigger has a Colossus and should have 2 Colossus by the time this hits, I do think that with careful enough tank positioning, Cure has the tools that he needs to really shut this down.
Trigger's out of position. He has a Stalk army on the left-hand side. This tank is so exposed that we are pushing on forward. The tanks, they're looking to get within range of the Nexus as well.
That's every Terran player's dream, is to just see one exposed Colossus like that. Trigger is now starting to send a couple of units forward. Charge did finish up, but he's coming at this from a very wonky angle.
Yeah.
His Zealots are dying before they can make contact.
Exactly. Just a beautiful trade here for Cure. He is being cleaned up eventually, but these are expensive losses. Another Stalker's going to be going down. The Immortals themselves so exposed. He's going for the dive. Up.
There's no energy on these shield batteries. 1 Marauder is remaining, but here come the reinforcements. These Colossus are not long for this world.
They are not. The second Colossus goes down with that. That's the entire army gone, and Trigger has nothing left to defend. This third base so exposed. A couple of Zealots are trickling on in, but GG gets called, and Cure will take game number 1.
You can see the slightest smile on his face. Like, the slightest smile just crack up on his face when he realized that his Hellions cleaned house, and he was able to just walk his way into a pretty... was able to walk his way into a victory pretty much unchallenged from that point on.
Yeah, losing that many workers that early on is pretty devastating, and it's pretty, I don't want to say game-ending, but it's just a big blow to the economy of Protoss.
I go that far.
Arguably game-ending damage.
I go that far as somebody who has taken out 18 probes before the push has happened.
It was brutal. It was brutal, and again, like, Trigger initially had a really good defense. Like, he did well against the mine drop. Don't get us wrong. It was just the follow-up where he was lacking a little bit there, and Cure got a lot of momentum. His push, likewise, it wasn't just that he set himself up so well for the push, but also the push happened to be also coming in as Trigger was out of position. Remember, he only had that 1 Colossus at the third. He had everything else elsewhere.
Yeah, it's definitely got to be a little bit of a painful moment there for Trigger, because in a way he kind of did everything right in the early game. You know, obviously he didn't quite keep his eyes on those Hellions, and which you could argue that he should have. He should have, maybe kept a couple of stalkers back home to deal with them, but it's something that doesn't happen too often in TvP, so I do not fault Trigger 1 second for, forgetting about those Hellions after he deflected the mine drop.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's those little mistakes that you can't make against a player like Cure, Like, you cannot make those slip-ups here against a caliber of player, whether it's Cure, Clem, these big Terran names. Like, yeah, you have to play almost perfectly against them. And here we go. We're getting into game number 2.
Over here on Golden Aura, in the top left, we have the blue Terran player representing Team Liquid from Korea. We have the mayor of 688 Cure.
And in the right hand corner, we have the Canadian Protoss player for Team Basilisk. It is Trigger.
With a cheeky little SCV coming his way.
Yeah, here we go. The SCV poised to throw down potentially a proxy Rax. Yep, there we go. He's going to be hiding here on the right-hand side, and the Rax is on the way.
Just like so. What are you calling here? Like 1 Rax, 2 Rax?
I think it's only going to be 1 Rax. Like, there's potential for proxy Marauder, but it's pretty far away from proxy Marauder here. Gases are being taken. We'll see. We'll see what Kira has in store for us.
Yeah, as Trigger is taking this pretty seriously. He is checking just outside of his main base and at that 3rd base location, but that's not where the proxy's at, Trigger.
It is not. I mean, he checks the standard proxy location, but Cure, there's a reason why he threw it back a little bit further, and we can see that it goes by unscouted. Rax will finish, and from here, Reaper production has begun. So it's not the most committed of proxies, but with this SCV should be coming in, and ideally, Cure throws out a bunker behind the mineral line, so that we can get this proxy Reaper to get even more damage done.
Yeah, that's how you really squeeze out the most value out of a proxy Reaper like this. Cure building his factory back at home, and this is the big tip-off here for Trigger.
Yeah, exactly. Now he's aware that there is a proxy. There it is. There's that bunker on the way. This is a boulder bunker. It is not behind the mineral line. It's actually next to the pylon. So the goal here is to get on top of the pylon so that the shield battery will be depowered, so we can get even more damage done and even more sustain.
Yeah, can be absolutely very impactful. That shield battery, I believe, is in range of the bunker as well. Stalker in production, but it's not out just yet, so Cure going to be able to pick off a handful of probes uncontested.
Yeah, he gets a handful of workers. Bunker does finish. He can dive on in, both with the Reaper as well as the SCV. The SCV does take a couple of hits, but again, we are just focusing down at that, I believe, shield battery as best we can. Yeah, shield battery already out of shields.
Yeah, I like this from Cure. Didn't waste any time chipping away at the Stalker whatsoever. He is just going to maximize his potential here. That's a little bit of crowd control with the KD8 charge as well, but a little bit too cocky. Has now lost his SCV.
Yeah, SCV did go down, but he does get a kill on the shield battery. And again, 0 mining here on the low ground just because of the bunker. It should be salvaged as it has caught fire. Shield battery is cancelled though. Upon realizing the bunker should be going down, Trigger should hold.
Just like so, but even still, that was a pretty hefty loss this early on. 2 probes is negligible, but 2 probes and a shield battery will eat into your income quite a bit.
It will, and we have Kira going to be reinforcing with a couple of Cyclones. We have the first Cyclone, second Cyclone is on the way behind this, CC on the high ground as well. Oh, we're taking a lot of damage here. Good target firing out of Trigger, but the Cyclone barely does survive.
Just barely. He's not really going to be able to utilize that going forward, as more Cyclones are on the way.
Not just Cyclones, a medevac as well. So Curie is going for a Cyclone drop, I imagine towards the main base. Fun fact, Cyclones, they can just do so much damage to probes to the mineral line, so ideally want to try to get in there. We'll see what kind of angle Curie goes for. Regardless, aggression is upon him. I'm sure he wants to top up that Cyclone first. Again, it's on 2 HP, so it's going to take a little bit, but once it's topped up, we can move out.
Slowly but surely. Well, not that slowly anymore.
Yeah.
Especially with medevac boosts coming down.
There we go. We are boosting across the map. The weakened Cyclone was left at home. We just waited for another Cyclone to be produced, and we are making our way towards the main base. Trigger, it's going to be on him to be in position to minimize his losses.
And unfortunately, this is a massive main base on Golden Aura. Trigger, he's anticipating a more frontal assault, so he doesn't quite have eyes on these Cyclones. Stalkers are not in position to deal with them.
Not quite in position. We do lose 2 probes in a couple of seconds, so already a good pick off there by Cure. Does have to respect the Stalkers. He cannot fight that head on, but was able to get quite a bit of damage done, and he's got a second force threading the natural.
Yeah, multi-prong coming down right now for Cure. One Stalker should already be dealt with, like so, and he is pulling the main focus of Trigger away from that main base once again. Cure coming in for a second assault, and more probes are starting to go down. Has to be a little bit careful. This is a decent number of Stalkers, and just like that, the medevac almost goes down.
And so far, very efficient trades here out of Cure. He kills 3 probes. I think that's 5 probes in total, and a Stalker as well. But he will finally lose one of his Cyclones. Behind this, we're out of Cyclone production. We're getting into Bio Tank, Marauder production, Stim, Combat Shields. But the aggression, the harassment from Cure still is not ending as he's moving out, queued up for some Ravens.
It's always funny to see the auto turrets queued up this early on. But yeah, might as well. Cure knows that the name of the game right now is to just harass Trigger's economy, make sure he doesn't get comfortable, make sure he can't get into that robo facility, or I guess in this case, mass gateway production.
Exactly, there we go, 6 gates on the way, so he's going for that Swarm Toss style that you were alluding to earlier in Game 1, and this all gets scouted. Massive scout here from Curie, sees all the gateways on the way. He's fully aware that there aren't going to be any Colossi or Disruptors, or even Storm. He's aware of the Swarm Toss.
Yeah, now he has a bit of an opportunity on his hands. He knows that if he gets caught in the middle of the map, then he shouldn't win the fights, as that was actually a kill and not a cancel on the cannon, I'm assuming. That's what it was. But Cure also knows that if he is able to entrench himself, set up a siege line outside of a base, there's not that much Trigger can realistically do at this point. He just doesn't have a high enough quantity or a high enough production to really flank a sieged up Terran army.
Yeah, we can see that Trigger, he is taking up even further. He's not staying with mass gateway units. We have a bay on the way that should be for eventually Colossus production, but again, it has been delayed in favor of +1 and in favor of charge. So there's going to be a window where he won't have that available. We'll see if Cure can take advantage of that as he kills another 2 workers in the main base, and he's moving out with his Marauders.
Yeah, Stim has finished up a little bit earlier on, but yeah, Cure doesn't want to commit just yet, not without +1 at least.
Yeah, as we do manage to pick up a couple of units, we can see Cure, he's just staying back at home for the time being. Mine drop on the way towards the 3rd base, let's go. Colossus production has commenced. There was always the option to maybe go into Disruptor first, but I appreciate that Trigger is calming things down and going for the Colossi first instead, just a more secure way to settle himself in.
Yeah, definitely a lot more reliable compared to Disruptors. Sure, they might not do much against the Marauders or the tanks, but it's damage you can count on compared to Disruptors, which can get huge damage, but can also just whiff and do nothing.
Exactly, as a Mind Jump going to be coming in. Doesn't actually get too much damage done, good reaction at a Trigger, but we can see that we have given the opportunity for Cure to push right through the center here, right under the nose of Trigger. He is out of position, he's dealing with the mines. Meanwhile, here comes the main army in between the bases.
The Colossus is exposed again!
No!
Why does this keep happening? The Colossus goes down far too far away from shield battery range. Couple of Stalkers now coming in for a bit of a concave. Stimmed Marauders are putting in a lot of damage. Good target firing from Trigger, taking out those medevacs. Cure will have to go back home, but that was an expensive loss.
Yeah, I mean, Trigger will lose his entire army. Bear that in mind. So it wasn't for nothing, but as you mentioned, losing the Colossus was brutal. We do have to get back into that. Again, ideally, we want to hit critical mass of 3 Colossi, but with that much more delayed here for Trigger.
Much more delayed, and we can see Cure already setting up for round 2, setting up another mine drop, just consolidating some of his forces. He has stopped tank production, which I think is ideal for the gateway style that Trigger's thrown his way. Does mean that he'll have a little bit more difficulty zoning away and chipping away at the Colossus, though.
Exactly. As you mentioned, you know, tanks are just not ideal against mass charge lots. Meanwhile, we have a Widowmine drop coming in. We do have cannons in position, though. We do pull away in time. Good reaction so far out of Trigger as he does minimize his losses and does deal with those mines.
Like so. Human probes do go down. Both players are pretty even economically. When it comes to the worker count, they are about the same, but of course, Trigger is setting up his 4th base quite a bit quicker.
Yeah, and Trigger, he needs that 4th to get up and running. He's getting into 2nd Robo to get into double Colossus and eventually double Disruptor production. I say that recently Trigger has been very fond of not going double Disruptor but going double Immortal instead, just as an alternate way to support the army. So we'll see if he goes for that here against Cure, as Cure is getting his own 4th on location. A little bit greedy, but he does have map control.
Yeah, he can afford to be greedy for now. We'll see if the turn's tabled.
We shall see. Ghost production well underway for Cure as well. He's going to have a lot of EMPs. As we mentioned, there it is, double Immortal production. So this is something that Trigger and Max Packs have been sprinkling in every now and then. Again, instead of relying on Disruptors, especially because of the new change, because Disruptors, they do cost more supply than before. They've been experimenting and they've been just mixing in Massive Immortal instead.
Yeah, which obviously is a very beefy unit. It can be key to taking out some of these beefier Terran units like Marauders. If there were still tanks, it would be the key to taking out the tanks as well. They're definitely a lot more reliable than Disruptors, but at the same time, their potential for, swinging things in the Protoss player's favor is also much lesser.
100%. That's the trade-off, right? Like, as you mentioned, there's so much potential with big Purification Nova Shots, but the Nova Shots aren't going to be available here for Trigger, as we do have a massive Auto-Turret harass in the main base, taking down the cannon, and getting into the middle line. 5-6 probes go down. Pretty good amount of damage.
Really good amount of damage here. Trigger has never really been able to get up into 70 workers, let alone the 90 probes that you really want in the endgame Protoss army.
Yeah, exactly, and because of that Cure, he's able to max out first. He is reaching that 200 supply mark. He's got plenty of Vikings on the way, +1 air attack as well, +1 ship weapons, and behind this, Cure should eventually be working towards a Fusion Core and Liberator production.
Yeah. All builds lead to libs.
It's all
one way or another.
It's all about that freedom in TvP, and we'll get there eventually. Again, Cure just marauding around. Trigger has established his 4th base, thankfully, and Trigger, he is now maxing out himself, but there's that Fusion Core that we were talking about, and Trigger does not have the best army to deal with a lib transition, which is on the horizon, not quite here yet.
Yeah.
Oh.
Not just yet, as Cure scans, takes over the army, and decides he can't quite push up that ramp in particular.
Yeah, exactly. He's gonna have to rotate around, still testing the waters. That's 2 more starports on the way. That's 3 CC. Oh my. I mean, Trigger, Kira, he knows he's a little bit far ahead here, so he's got 3 CCs in production alongside 3 starport production as well to eventually get into those Liberators. Oh.
Yeah. It's like he has a macro that tells him to spend this money when he starts banking them. Starts banking it.
There you go. Big EMPs here on the army as well, so a good start here from Cure. Trigger going to try and clean this up. The Massive Immortal has been spotted, and there we go. The first wave of Liberators are on the way, but we're still not quite there yet. Trigger, he can push out. He can try and deny this base.
Try, of course, being the operating word. As that's a lot of Terran. Might not have a lot of anchor units, but it is still terrifying with all these ghosts, with all of these Marauders as well. Huge EMPs right in the center of the army. Most of the Archons are down. Colossus are starting to fall. And what's left of the Protoss army isn't too beefy. Huge reinforcement of charge slots will be keeping this Terran army at bay. Will be preventing it from really going for a big counterattack, but once again, a much more efficient trade for Cure.
Hey, that was an insane trade for Cure. He got a massive wave of EMPs. The first line of Zealots from Trigger died instantly. Like, it was crazy. As soon as the Zealots went down, we got on top of the Colossus, we got on top of the Immortals as well. A very efficient fight. And now Cure, he's remaxing with Ghost Lib. The army's getting more and more complex. Meanwhile, Trigger is coming in once again.
And He is okay. He's got decent anti-air. He's remade his Archons. He's got a couple of Stalkers, but how long will they last?
And does focus down both those Liberators. He does get a feedback on the Ghosts as well, doing whatever he can, but here come the reinforcements. The Marauders trading so efficiently against the Immortals and the Stalkers as well. We do barely get a warp in of reinforcements, but this Prism is so low.
It is very, very low. One more target fire from a couple of Ghosts should be enough to take it out. It is still alive for now, and Cure, I think he's realized that damage has been done. He can just start parade pushing all the way across the map.
Mate, that was insane. We saw once again a Cure. He got on top of, I want to say, 6 Immortals, and they melted. The Immortals, they melted against the Mass Marauder. One stim was all it took for Cure to just snowball out of control. Liberators are arriving, and Trigger, he is down to sub 100 supply.
It's always unfortunate. He's got 70 workers, which is all right, but 50 army supply at this point. That is game-ending.
Yeah, as we do see Cure just reinforcing across time. He knows he has momentum on his side. A big EMP once again on one of those Immortals. He's going to be pulling back for the time being, but he's looking for that 5th base. He wants to deny the mining here from Trigger.
Yeah, Cure's being very methodical this game, not jumping straight for the throat. He wants to make sure that he always has an opportunity to escape before he does so. Another Colossus gets sniped. Cure getting a little bit flanked, or I should say Trigger trying to go for a bit of a flank, but Cure's just too well set up. He's got his Marauders. His Liberators finally go down, but not before taking out a whole massive chunk of the Protoss army with them.
Yeah, the Immortal count was reset in doing so, and here come the reinforcements. You can see that Cure just has so much momentum on his side. The reinforcements, the rally just does not end. We have one Colossus to hold on, one Colossus here to try to survive, but there's no shield battery here at this 5th base. There's no overcharge available either.
Yeah, Trigger desperately trying to muster up a defense. He's getting a couple of Archons. He's getting restarted his Immortal production, but I don't think the numbers lie in this case, Light. I don't think the soup is trying to deceive us.
Yeah, the soup does not lie. Not here, as Liberator's going to be sieging up. Zealous, they go for a big dive here. Liberator's going to be going down, but we just don't have the numbers we need from the Protoss.
None at all. If this map were infinite and this Colossus were able to just continually kite back, maybe there's a chance, but that is not the reality that we live in. GG is called. Cure will be taking that series 2-0. Nicely done.
GG, well played. A solid series there out of Cure. Trigger having a really hard time in game 1 after slipping up a little bit in the early game. Here in game 2, likewise, the Proxy Reaper did very well for Cure, followed by the Constant Harass with Auto Taurus, with Mine Drops as well, and yeah, just a solid series there out of Cure. We talk about how he is overshadowed at times by Clem. That is true, but he's still an amazing player in his own right.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a reason why he was probably the most high-profile pickup of Team Liquid in 2023. And in fact, going back further, I'm trying to think if there really was any higher pickup for TL. I think Tejas started. No, Tejas started on Slayers, but he only made a name for himself on TL. So yeah, I'm gonna say definitively, Cure, the most high-profile pickup.
Yeah, it does feel
in
like
Team Liquid history.
A lot of the pickups from Team Liquid before that, like, they grew into who they became, right? They weren't already established before they got picked up.
Look at Clem.
Yeah, exactly. Look at Clem growing before our eyes. But GG, well played. Very well played here by all of our winning players here. And if you're a fan of players like Trigger, like Rainer, like Solar, and Oliveira as well, they will be fighting back in a couple of days in the second round. Meanwhile, tomorrow we're going to be back with the second half of round 1. Tomorrow is going to be Beyond versus Shin, Hero versus Bunny, Maxpax versus Firefly, and Clem versus Maru.
Oh, I can't believe my eyes.
All the Fireflies. So, again, if you enjoyed today's broadcast, well, stick around because we're going to be back here every day for the next 2 weeks. It's a very long event, and it's just back-to-back non-stop StarCraft.
Just keep coming and they don't stop coming.
Exactly. So this is merely the beginning of Masters Coliseum, and it will continue for the next 2 weeks until we crown our champion. On side, of course, were the WTL champions, but who's going to be the individual league champions? Cyril looking strong already, Dark as well. We still have yet to feature some of the big Terran players. I mean, we saw Cure, but you know, Clem and Maru, they're facing off tomorrow in a TvT.
Oh boy. A little bit of a rematch from WTL, a very recent match from WTL as well, so a lot of potential for it to go the exact same way, but also a lot of potential for Maru to have learned since then.
A lot of potential, and with that, we're going to be wrapping up here tonight. Again, only 4 matches here, and tomorrow will be the other 4, so I hope you all enjoyed yourselves, hope you all had a good time. Yaku, thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you.
And you.
Yaku, what have you been up to? Do you have any New Year's resolutions for 2024?
I had a New Year's resolution. It was to do 100 jumping jacks a day. And then my hip wore out. So now I have to find a new resolution.
Oh no. Not like
my wrist
this.
also wore out, so I'm a little out of commission for anything more intensive.
Look after yourself, Papi. Look after yourself. Aye. Yeah, Happy New Year, of course, everyone. And what a way to start the new year with an event like Masters Coliseum. For those that are curious, Masters Coliseum should be wrapping up, like, I think 2 weeks before IEM Katowice. So just one event right into the other. So yeah, there's a lot of StarCraft coming up here, and it's all leading into IEM Katowice.
Indeed. Huge developments have taken place since 2023. Obviously, that year we saw the rise of Clem. He is looking like an absolute monster going through, but there are a lot of huge developments elsewhere as well. Navi is actually actually has a player now in StarCraft.
True. Yeah, I think my eyes are definitely on, obviously, Clem, to see his form here in the aftermath of Masters Coliseum. Likewise, Cyril. Obviously, my eyes are definitely on Cyril here, because even though he did get knocked out, even though he didn't become our ESL Masters Winter Champion, he's still an amazing player, and still a player to keep your eye on, as he is going to be a threat for that IEM Katowice trophy, for that crown.
Yeah. I believe the players have been seeded already, have they? I need to double check that.
I know they've been invited. I think they've been confirmed. I don't know if we have groups yet for IEM Katowice.
Oh, okay. So they're probably seeding it right now. I need to take another look at the players who made it through. There we go, Spirit. He is qualified for IEM.
Yeah, he has qualified.
I had to remind myself.
All good. But with that, do you have anything else you want to add here before we head off for the night?
Get some nuts. They're healthy. That's my advice.
Get those nuts, Papi. Get those nuts. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you guys tomorrow for day number 2 of Masters Coliseum 7. Until then, enjoy yourselves. Take care. Drink plenty of water. And get those nuts.
Yeah. Put them in your mouth.
See you then.
I'll see ya.